as a broker, as an owner, you see, I can make a deal a 6 cap, or it can be an 8 cap, or it can be a 5 cap. It depends on how you want to look at the deal. And so in the property tax business, instead of making deals look as good as we could in the brokerage business, you try to make things look as bad as you can in the property tax business.
Welcome back to Keeping It Real Estate Show. Today, we're honored to have a true industry veteran with us, Mark Cantrell. And Mark is a founding partner of Cantrell McCulloch Incorporated, which is one of Texas' largest property tax consulting firms. They represent over $50 billion in property value across 29 states. And Mark's real estate journey began in brokerage with Marcus Millichap. He quickly rose to the top ranks, and then from there went on to found multiple companies and is now a leader in property tax litigation and consulting. Today, he's going to share his story, his expertise in property tax litigation, and some of the strategies that have led to some really, really significant savings for his clients. Dan and I, we've been clients of Mark's for, probably 7 or 8 years now. And they've saved us, millions and millions of dollars and increased our value substantially. So I'm super excited to have you on the show, Mark.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate those kind words. Thank you. And thank you for your business as well.
Most definitely. Well, I'd love for you to start out, just go back to the beginning. You started your real estate career, with Marcus and Millichap.
Yep.
I think back in the 1980s, which obviously, the multifamily space was a lot different back then. What initially drew you to the real estate space, and what was it like, starting out as a broker back in the 80s?
Well, that's a good question. It was kind of a crazy market back then. The reason I got into real estate, Mike, is my brother Tim was at Marcus Millichap. He started in 81, and he got in real estate because his fraternity brother of ours was running the office at Marcus Millichap. I believe it was the 4th office that Marcus Millichap opened across the country, was the Dallas office. And so it was a little different market then. The Marcus and Millichap way of doing business was only operating on exclusive listings. And so this is in 1981, and you'd call people and they'd say, hey, exclusive listings, and just hang up. We don't do those. It was really to that extent. And so Tim got into business, and he was a CPA. He was a young CPA, but he wanted to make more money, and he felt like real estate was the best way of doing it. And so he struggled for a year or so. It's hard to get traction when you're young and looking for exclusives in a California firm in a Texas market. Mm-hmm. And so then he became really successful, 83 or so. And so I got out of college. I sold copiers for a while, and then I did everything basically that my brother did. So I went to work for Marcus and Millichap. And so at that time, exclusive listings, it was very, very difficult. And what was really interesting, though, at Marcus, for some reason, we attracted some really, really talented people that have gone on to be very, very successful in the real estate business. And so we had a really good group there, tough market. 86, when the tax laws changed, the depreciation was drastically changed. I think there was either 11 or 13 transactions in Dallas, Fort Worth, over 50 units that traded in all of 1986.
Wow. And fast forward to today, there's tons of transactions.
There's that many each day. It's incredible. Yeah. The market came to a complete halt. The velocity of real estate and of apartment properties just wasn't the same even before that. And really after that, it's never really been the same up until this last 5, 7, 10-year cycle. Multifamily always had a higher velocity than any other product type. And so we worked on different things. I worked on a lot of single credit properties, retail, but apartments were mainly what Marcus and Millichap did. And we really did only Class C properties because we weren't big enough or well known enough to be able to crack the institutional business. That was a CBRE, Grubb & Ellis. Henry S. Miller was in the market at that time. And so it was really hard for us to do that. But we eventually, once the RTC, the real estate depression hit in 86, 87, oil went down to $15 a barrel, no transactions in the market. And so it was really difficult. Marcus and Millichap did a crazy thing. They gave myself, Tim, Mike Birch, he was our manager. He's he's a very successful real estate owner and has a brokerage firm, Ruin Properties. My brother has done very well. And then the other gentleman was Mike Oxteen, and he's done very well in the syndication business. I think he has about 5,000 units. So our office had 27 brokers early 80s. It got down to four guys. And we were all going to get out of the market because, we weren't making any money. So they gave us some salaries to kind of get us over. So once the RTC and FDIC got involved, then the exclusive listing became more of a norm. And then, today almost all the deals are transacted pretty much on exclusive listings. So it was a really interesting market.
Very interesting market. And, when the real estate or commercial real estate sector crashed in, 86, 87, how long did it take to come, ripping back? And what was that like?
Well, 86, 87, terrible. 88, starting to pick up. 89, a little bit. 1990, we started making money again. And the Dallas office was one of the leading offices of Marcus Millichap at that time. They were going through a little bit of a depression out there, a recession, not a depression, a recession out there in the real estate. And so we were really, a lot of California people, probably all of our transactions almost exclusively were with California buyers. A little bit of East Coast money started coming in the early 90s. And then the market kind of changed again. It went back to individual owners. So the velocity of the market changed again. And so 93, 94, 95, we started changing from a government selling of assets that all these banks had taken back to now it was back in individuals' hands. And so they did very well in profit-wise, the people that were able to purchase between 89 and 93. That was kind of the time frame. And so that's kind of, once we hit 2000, Dallas was on the radar of everybody across the country. But until then, it really wasn't. So it's been really interesting.
Very interesting. And, after a successful run in brokerage, I believe you made the shift to start your own multifamily brokerage firm, the Cantrell Company. Yeah. What drove you to take that leap? And is that company still in operation today?
Well, that's a good question. It is not really in operation today. I hate to say that. We had a 26-year run, and it was good. But we started that business. My dad was an entrepreneur. Tim was an entrepreneur. And I'm not sure why I did it. I just was an entrepreneur with Tim. And so we just said, hey, let's go out and replicate what we're doing. Marcus and Millichap. I was a little naive and thought I could grow a big business. And it wasn't quite as easy as I thought. Now, we held our own for a while, but we realized we couldn't compete against the national firms. We couldn't get the Class A, the institutional business. So it kind of limited us a little bit income-wise, but we did pretty well. And so we had a nice little run there. But in 2001, that's when I started the property tax business, and it really changed the course of my life. And it was just kind of by accident that we started that. I remember I settled in a tax, I consulted on a property for a lady in Denton. And I did 2 properties that year. And I usually would do 1 or 2 a year, and we'd do it free for clients. And so I remember I saved her like $60,000 or something. I said, hey, Wanda, I'd like to get paid on this one. She goes, okay. We still weren't making great monies. And so I asked her for a little bit of money, and she kind of balked at it. And she goes, okay, I'll do it. And so I came back to the office. I remember telling Tim, I go, hey, I just made $5,000. And I spent maybe 30 minutes. I said, this is an incredible opportunity, I think. And so anyway, we went out to the appraisal district at Dallas and talked to someone that's still there, Steve Brown, and he recommended 3 people that we interviewed to start the firm with. And one of them happened to be Bobby McCulloch. And Tim was going out the door and said, hey, I'm going to lunch with Bobby McCulloch. He says he knows you. I go, Bobby, he was one of my fraternity brothers at college. And he was a year behind me, and I hadn't seen him in 20 years. And so anyway, fast forward, Bobby joins us, tells us, hey, the numbers won't work. We don't think it'll happen. We can do this. But he had a non-compete. We brought him on. We said, hey, don't worry about the non-compete. We'll guarantee you money. We'll get this thing going. And, just like starting the brokerage business, I was a little naive, Mike, but this time it really worked. And so we just built it all organic, the way we are today. We just work hard, don't overcharge, And I think we really really created a good niche for ourselves.
That's amazing. I'm sure your background, in brokerage and owning, quite a bit of multifamily real
Yeah,
estate plays into the success
huge.
that you guys have in the industry. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's huge because the operations and understanding why things transact and different markets and so forth, it really makes a big difference. As a broker, as an owner, you see, I can make a deal a 6 cap, or it can be an 8 cap, or it can be a 5 cap. It depends on how you want to look at the deal. And so in the property tax business, instead of making deals look as good as we could in the brokerage business, you try to make things look as bad as you can in the property tax business. So it was a kind of an easy transition. I never really did the consulting myself. I had a couple of counties in Central Texas that they would allow me to go down there and work. But my personality just was a little bit difficult, I think, to go in districts. I don't have a lot of patience. I'm just purely a sales guy and not technical. It's a little embarrassing, my computer skills, but it served me well for having Bobby as my partner, because he is just the opposite. He is the best in the industry, seriously. Probably arguably the best consultant in the state of Texas. And he's been that way kind of since day one. And so, I mean, what's the chances of that happening, hooking up with somebody like that? It's great.
That's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And you guys, represent what, $50 billion in property value across 29 states. I guess I'd love to hear, you've grown a pretty decent sized business for any of our listeners out there that are starting a new business or they're just getting into real estate. Any advice in regards to growing a business like that? Because you've seen a lot, I'm sure.
Well, it all depends on the quality of people that you're able to associate yourself with. And that, starting with Bobby, great man, great guy, good hard worker. I'm a hard worker. My dad taught Tim and I how to do things. We grew up on a farm. And so Tim really rolled up his sleeves and helped us initially. And then after the first couple of years, it became more of a silent partner, paid Bobby and I salary, and then we split profits. But, just doing things the right way, not overcharging, not overpromising. It's not rocket science what we do. And I tell people we're kind of a necessary evil. The business is just what it is. It's a beautiful business. I feel like the timing was really advantageous. The interest rates started coming down in 2001, 2, 3. And so that really gave us a shot in the arm because a lot of transactions started occurring. And we really chased after sales because the appraisal districts also chased after sales. And that created a real inequitable situation between the deals that transacted and the deals that had been held on for a long time. Because again, Mike, the velocity of the market was nothing compared to today. I don't know exactly how to explain what has really changed, but there's just a lot more entrepreneurs than there used to be. It was a small fraternity back then in the day.
No, that makes sense. And I'd love to take a step back, Mark, and just have you explain the high level process of litigating a property tax case, start to finish, for anyone that's not familiar with, how you get the appraised value and how you go about litigating and figuring out if you're going to litigate, the property tax value.
Well, we start the process at the end of January, early February, send a request for information letter out to owners and request their P&L statements for the prior year along with their rent roll. And then we also ask them anything that you can tell us about the property that could be detrimental to the value, fires, foundation report, floods, crime, anything like that, roofs that we really can't see driving the property. And so we really ask the owners to help us out a little bit there. A lot of times we don't get information on a timely basis, and that makes it difficult because the notice values come out, Mike, April 15, pretty much across the state of Texas. And so you have 30 days to file a protest after the notified value or May 15, whichever is latter, 30 days or after. And so we only have X amount of days to settle value. So you really have to be prepared once that clock starts April 15. And so we start meeting with the district shortly after the notice values come out. We obviously do not really settle anything initially. We're just trying to kind of dance and feel each other out and see what the situation is. Sometimes we had to order a cap rate study, which we did this last year. Sometimes we do an expense study, just different things to try to achieve the best scenario we can for our owners and challenge the appraisal district. The districts most all districts are taxpayer friendly. I mean, they're not adversaries like most owners kind of think. And maybe some consultants take that attitude. Now, some districts are difficult. There's no question about it. But the Dallas-Fort Worth area is not difficult. They're willing to look at the facts that we present them and the arguments and so forth. And so it's a big relationship business. You need to have a good relationship with the district. But anyway, probably 70% of the time, 80%, we settle values on an informal basis. And we now get the ability to still litigate or arbitrate. If it's $5 million or under, you can arbitrate. Very effective. Almost 100% of the time, we're able to settle values through arbitration. Not very costly. Anything over $5 million, you have to litigate, and you should litigate. It's just kind of a normal process in the property tax business. It's just a 3-step: informal, ARB hearing, and then litigation. We have over 1,000 lawsuits this year in arbitrations combined. I think it's right at 1,000 lawsuits and about, I think it's 100 or so arbitration. And we're successful 99% of the time, maybe even more than that, on the litigation arbitration phase. It's just kind of the process, and the appraisal district understands that as well. So the thing that I could tell owners is get us the information as soon as you can. Be forthcoming with what is really going on at your property that we may not know, like crime. Crime is a big deal. If it's, you got a problem, you just need to help the consultant figure out, is there an angle I can approach the district with that will give us a little bit more off the property. And then, like what I was saying, when you litigate, you only need to save about $150,000 to $200,000 in assessment to pay for the cost of the litigation. So you understand it's just a no-brainer. We probably litigate close to 50% of our apartment properties. So those 1,000 lawsuits, probably 900 are apartments, and the other 100 are the commercial. We have about over 2,000 apartment complexes across Texas, and it's over 300,000 units, and it's right at 50 billion. That's right about a 45 billion. That's in Texas. And so the rest of the properties, we have about 3,000, 4,000 commercial properties. So we do all product types, but multifamily is the majority of the value that we represent.
Yeah. Got it. And when you said, you need to litigate down by $130,000 to $150,000, that's the actual value that you're litigating down. And then it creates, savings on the property tax side, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Got it. Looking back on our portfolio, I have to look at the actual numbers, but I believe you guys saved us about $400,000 across our portfolio, in actual property taxes that we paid. And, the beautiful thing is that's not only, boosting cash flow and helping with the operations, but it's impacting your value significantly too. I mean, if you take $400K, divide that by a 5 cap, that's $8 million in potential value that could be lost if you don't dig in and use someone like Mark here. So just keep that in mind if you're buying commercial properties. Mark, I would love for you to dive in and give us any red flags that buyers should be looking out for when they're acquiring a new asset on the property tax side.
That's a good question. Really, Mike, over the last 10 years or so, almost all apartment properties, the way they are negotiated and the value is determined is equal and uniform. And so what I mean is up until really 2006, 7, we almost always, 95% of the time when we settle values at the appraisal district, it was on an income and expense model. So what we would argue is, is the vacancy correct? Is the other income correct? The bad debt? And then we would go into the expense ratios and things like that. And then the cap rate. Cap rates is very important. And that would determine really what your value would be. Well, once the market really took off in 6 and 7, right before the Great Recession there, sales equal and uniform became the norm because the income and expense model gave us a much higher value than what the appraisal district was even notified at a lot of times. And if it was a sale, Mike, The tax code is real simple. It's a one sentence. If there is a conflict in value between the market value and the median value of the comparable properties appropriately adjusted, the median value takes precedent over the market value. And so once we got into something sold at $40 million and it's assessed at $20 million the prior year, and the appraisal district hits it at 40 million, then you go in and look, hey, what's the median value of the realistic apartment comps, and we adjust them for rents. And so that's the number. When we first started telling people, they go, I don't believe you. You would be shocked how many people thought you pay taxes based on the purchase price. And I would tell owners down on the phone, hey, you don't have to, it doesn't matter what you pay for the property. And they would kind of laugh at me and not thinking that I really didn't know what I was talking about. I can be a little bit of a goofy sales guy a lot of times, but really we were able to grow our business by helping people pay taxes based on what they should be paying on equitable with the other properties that hadn't transacted. But that became the norm. So income and expenses over the last 10 years, it really hadn't helped us. It still provides us a higher value than before. Now, over the last year or so, it's starting to change. Now we're starting to use operations because occupancies are down, rents are down. We're arguing cap rate with the appraisal district because of the interest rates. Everybody knows what's happened to cap rates. So it could be this year and going forward, we're starting to talk income and expenses, not just the equitable, equal, and uniform number. So it's kind of it's important to look at both.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I would say, on the buy side, when you're looking to acquire an asset, I mean, some of your biggest expenses are going to be your debt and your property taxes.
Yeah.
And so just getting really clear on what you expect the property taxes to be over the hold period. And I know that's something we utilize you guys for. And, it's just, if you don't do the legwork and dig in up front, you can be in for a huge negative surprise down the road. So just make sure you're doing your legwork up front and understanding the property tax situation that you're going to be in. And Mark, I would assume, go ahead.
The red flag, you asked about the red flag, is if there is a value and for some reason it's really, really low, you need to ask your tax professional to give you a forecast. And in that way, it's really pretty simple to get a handle on what the taxes are likely going to be if you take that equal and uniform approach and you have a property tax consultant give you that forecast prior to you going under contract. So you could have a deal that's worth 40 million and it may be assessed right at 40 million, and it shouldn't be. Or it could be assessed at 20, 22 million, and you're going, hey, there's a big delta here. This could really be a problem if I don't acknowledge what, the taxes really could be. Well, the 22 million may be a really good number. If that's the case, then you have to be able to go after the property based on that number, or you have no chance of getting the transaction. You know what I'm saying? The guys that are buying most of the deals typically are very aggressive on the taxes. Now, you don't want to be stupid, obviously, but if you have a really good forecast and you really understand the forecast, you see the evidence, you can buy a deal based on what the taxes, really should be. You guys had the deal down in, I think, Cleaver.
Yep. You got it.
I mean, the taxes were, what were they, 30, 40% of what you were?
Yeah, it was around there. It was really, really low. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that one was.
And they stayed pretty close to that level, the whole hold period.
They're still there. It's crazy. So it depends on the county. You just need to really understand each county that you're working in and try to determine, are they way underassessed, and could they be all going to be correctly assessed in the next 2 to 3 years? We've seen a few sleepy counties that have jumped values, and it's caught everybody a little bit. You just got to make sure that you're really assessing the future of those taxes in the right way.
Yep. And each county is different. Each state's different. We buy properties in Nashville and then in DFW as well. And it's just completely different on how often they reassess the properties and how they do that. So just make sure to understand the ins and outs. And Mark, you guys operate in 29 states, so I would assume you're staying up to date on all the little nitpicky details, correct?
Yeah, you have to.
Yep.
Now, mainly we were in 16 states, I think, last year on multifamily. We were
Okay.
in more states with commercial. We just joined a national multi-housing group 2 years ago. This will be our third tax year. And so instead of going and representing properties, we still do a little bit in Georgia, a little bit in Florida, but most of the time we're going with their network. It's a group of about 12 companies that are companies like our firm that are kind of middle market people, and we really care. We really know the region, and so we're starting to use that group to do our out of state work on multifamily.
That makes sense.
I think it helps our clients.
100%. Yeah, get that local expertise. Any changes, any big changes that you see coming down the pipeline heading into 2025, that owners of commercial real estate should be aware of on the property tax side?
Well, I think one good thing is the Texas legislature starts their session in January. They meet every 2 years. And everyone the governor, the lieutenant governor, the speaker of the House, everybody has property tax elimination. That's their goal. Governor is very proponent for this. So you're going to see, I think, some further compression in property taxes. It's the school maintenance and operation, and that's about 60%, Mike, of the tax rate. Okay, and then the city and the county make up the other 40%. The maintenance and operations, it's the majority of the school tax. And so the governor, the legislature, they all want it. In 2023, there was a 13-cent buy down of the tax rate. So that that was about a 4 or 5% reduction in the overall tax rate, because Texas has a huge surplus, and we still have this huge surplus. So they're going to buy down the taxes again. They want to eliminate maintenance and operation. I don't think there's any way they can ever do that, because there's just no other really way to raise the revenue without income tax. Income tax will never happen in Texas. And so I think they're going to see a 3 to 5% overall tax rate reduction in 2025. That's a big deal. Now, the cities and the counties are struggling a little bit post-COVID. So the cities and counties not going to see much more compression in their tax rate. As this run up in values, we finally had, over the last 5 years, tax rates have gone down 20, 25%, pretty much across the board in Texas. And so I think you're going to see 3 to 5% reduction in 2025, but the cities and counties are not going to help that. It's a legislature meeting every 2 years. They're buying them down. So that's a good thing. And I don't think you'll see an aggressive notice values like we've seen in the last 5, 7, 10 years. The sales are just not there.
Yep.
Cap rates just haven't really moved. You go across the board, all across Texas, occupancies are down, rents are down. Cap rates have not come down. Interest rates, we thought we had a little reprieve there, and then they went back up. So really, the fundamentals have not improved to warrant any kind of assessment increase. Really. So I think you're going to see taxes are going to be lower in 2025 than they have been 2024. This is really the first year kind of across the board. I think you're going to see lower tax number, which is a beautiful thing.
Oh, very good. How long has it been since you've seen a reduction in property taxes like that?
I don't even know if we have across all product types. Maybe in 08, 09. But not really, because there was still some pretty aggressive. Appraisal districts are usually 12, 18 months behind the market. So even when the Great Recession happened, they were still behind, and so they're kind of catching up. But this year, I think we're really there. I think it's going this way.
Got it.
That's good.
That is great news to end on, and I appreciate you coming on today, Mark. Before we zip it up, any parting advice for our listeners at all?
No, just get a good tax consultant that you can trust and that has a really good reputation. We all charge pretty much the same fees. I mean, I think we're a little bit less than a lot of the big firms, but I mean, we're the second largest in Texas. I still think we're a little firm because we do things a little, we're just good, honest people. You want good, honest guys working for you. It's pretty simple.
Awesome. Well, I love it. We've had a great experience with you. And how can our listeners get a hold of you, Mark, or your team?
Okay. M. Cantrell at CMI- or hyphen tax.com. That's the best way.
All right. Perfect. Well, we'll make sure to throw that in the show notes as well. And, Mark, thank you so much for sharing your journey and all your insights today with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Most definitely. Thanks again for all the listeners tuning into another episode of the Keeping It Real Estate Show. We'll be on again next week, every Tuesday. And if you haven't already, make sure to leave us a rating and review as it helps us bring on great guests like Mark. Thanks so much.
All right, bye-bye.